What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're last week's album. We're bringing you two opinions on the best new music. And this week we're looking at Beneath the Skin by Of Monsters and Men. And we're asking, does Of Monsters and Men's sophomore release, Beneath the Skin, live up to its name? But before we go any further, we're going to start things off like we always do, drinking a beer. So cheers, Kevin, and cheers, everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home.
All right, so Of Monsters and Men is an Icelandic quintet that set the blogosphere abuzz in 2011 with their debut, My Head is an Animal. And they've taken some time off and are finally back with their sophomore album, Beneath the Skin. And one thing they've kind of said in interviews about this album is they're trying to get more personal or just in their songwritings that are kind of going a little bit deeper beneath the skin, if you will. So that brings us to Sounds Like. Kevin, what did you think?
I think this album sounds like the Shout Out Louds mixed with Highasakite. What do you think, Derek?
I can say I think Beneath the Skin sounds like Of Monsters and Men grow into their sound and maybe should have released their debut under the name Of Monsters and Boys? I don't know. Anyway, so that brings us to key tracks. Kevin, what did you have?
I'm going with track number 9 called Thousand Eyes. What about you?
That's a good one. I'm actually going with album closer, We Sink, which is the 11th track. So why don't you start us off?
Sure. Thousand Eyes is cool. It has this really eerie intro with some echoing synth, thumping percussion, some really restrained, almost whispered vocals, which is rare for Monsters and Men. And it really slowly builds in both volume and anticipation. And around the 2:20 mark, these really steely guitars come chugging in, along with really pensive strings, and the vocals drop out entirely. The drums get a lot louder. The strings get more and more busy and anxious, and it creates this sort of slow instrumental build to the end of the track. It almost feels like a movie trailer in a really cool, good way. And it's just really different and interesting and sort of the perfect kind of moody, which I think is kind of what they're going for with this album in general. It sounds very moody, if you will. So that's why I like that one. What are you digging, Derek?
I'm liking We Sink, the album closer. This one really is kind of dominated by two different sounds, that in the verses and the choruses. The opening and verse really features kind of the strummed acoustic guitar, albeit subtly. There's distant, reverb-heavy electric guitar in the background, a syncopated bass drum beat that I think really does, it builds anticipation. It's lessened during the verse, but it really comes through in the chorus. Layered male-female vocals here. And transitioning into the chorus, the verse winds down instrumentally to almost nothing, and it transitions into the chorus with this dreamy, seductive female vocal melody line saying ooh, 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 which I thought was really interesting because it leads way to this booming chorus featuring shimmering electric guitars and much louder drums that really help deliver the driving, punching chorus there. And after the second chorus, it really kind of begins this large build again, featuring piano, horns, lots of horns. I said that twice or so many of them. Strings, again, building anxiety and anticipation. I like how you phrase that, Kevin. And a buzzing electric guitar in the background. However, when it reaches the peak, it meets this immediate decline, and as it's followed only by soft, airy piano keys as it fades out. So I really like the way they, on one hand, it might seem underwhelming, but I really like the way they built this anticipation of this loud outro, and it's the complete opposite. I thought it was just very intriguing and more enjoyable in hindsight the more I kind of looked at it. So that's enough on that one. The lyrics were cool too, but I'm not going to spend any time there because we're going to be talking about the best lyrics. So Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I'm going a little different here. I'm pulling a best lyric from a song title, actually. The title being Eye of the Storm, and it's the personal pronoun I, as opposed to the I in your head. And I thought that fits the album overall, being sort of more open and honest, as you mentioned, Derek. And then just a really clever sort of turn of phrase in general. So really dug that one. What about you?
Man, I'm actually going with a lyric from the song "Eye of the Storm." Although I completely agree with you. It really caught my eye, pun intended, the first time I read that track title. But I'm going with the lyric: "I am a stranger. I am an alien inside a structure. Are you really gonna love me when I'm gone?" I just kind of like the way they kind of mirror the word stranger and structure. I mean, it doesn't rhyme, obviously, but kind of the way it's delivered, it does. And just really well encapsulate kind of the tone of this song, where they're kind of comparing fears and doubts to a brutal Icelandic winter. So, man, two birds, one stone with that song, huh? So that brings us to overall rating and answering the big question: does Monsters and Men sophomore album here, Beneath the Skin, live up to its name? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I will start with overall rating. I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. I think it's a lot darker and moodier than their first album. Lyrics are inspired by nature, a lot like the first one, but they're still pretty interesting. I think they do a good job lyrically. It's less acoustic and more electronic, but still pretty folksy in general. And I feel like in the lyrics, they're just trying to be so moody, but they're not. Maybe they're just not actually moody people. I think that's why their debut album was such a hit. It was pop and fun and almost whimsical, and now they're trying to go a different direction, and I just don't think it's gelling and working for them, especially when they have these big optimistic crescendos, which they still do here on this album, especially on the first half. But the subject matter is just sort of moody and dramatic, and I don't know, it just doesn't fit the music to me. But does it live up to its name? I don't think so. I think they again try to create the polar opposite of their debut album, but it's still, I don't know, it doesn't feel more honest or open. Especially the production feels very sort of smooth and cold, and just doesn't really let me sort of sink my teeth into anything of real substance. So I hate to say that. I was really looking forward to this, but yeah, 2 out of 5. What do you think, Derek?
We're gonna agree and disagree on a few points here. I guess I'll kind of answer the question: does it get beneath the skin or live up to its title? I'm gonna say no, in that it didn't. The melodies and stuff didn't really stick with me like debut album. Maybe it was a loss of that whimsicality that you kind of referred to. But overall, I thought it did show growth from their previous album. I think they really do a good job of striking a contrast between large layered sounds with sparser, minimal instrumental sections. One that really struck out to me was organs, which was just kind of a very soft piano, soft string centric. And then is followed by Black Water, which features trumpet just highlighting an instrumental buildup. So really kind of a contrast there. As you kind of mentioned in your key track, Thousand Eyes, I really like how you likened it to a movie trailer. I kind of had the same thought. I mean, it was just so large in scale, as in the buildup there. Lyrically, I think you make some good points. It's kind of dark, but maybe not all the way. I thought there was greater cohesion maybe overall as far as trying to create a story arc. And I thought at times it did kind of, the tone they were drawing lyrically was matched pretty well musically or sonically, I thought, which, I don't think was really present where they were trying to go after in their first album. So that being said, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Ultimately, yeah, it wasn't everything I hoped for, but I think they're moving in the right direction. And, maybe the coldness you thought was just, the Icelandic winter getting it to them. When did they record it? Maybe they recorded their debut album in in the nice Icelandic spring. I don't really know if such a thing exists. So there you have it. A 4 from myself, a 2 from Kevin. So that brings us a total of 6 out of 10. Although you should definitely go check it out and tell us what you think as well. Don't forget to subscribe to us here at Last Week's Album, where we're bringing you 2 opinions on the best new music. And as always, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin. See you next time.
Cheers.